All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg, and yeah, you saw a little bit of video clip I'm going to get to in just a moment. Getting a tiny bit of a late start. Do apologize for that, folks. Just trying to get all my ducks in a row for today's program. And I do want to, again, commend yesterday's program. I say again, I don't know if I commended yesterday, but I thought Chuck Pinocchio was a particularly good guest. They're all good. Everybody's good, but Chuck was very good giving us the skinny on what's happening in D.C. We'll talk more about D.C. in today's program. The main focus is going to be on the New York City mayoral election coming up in November. And that is what the thumbnail is, and it says worry, and I do think we should be concerned. The latest polling data, sure, I would prefer right now, if I was one of the candidates and my only concern was to win the election, I would prefer to be Zohran Mamdani for sure over any of the other candidates. But the race is not over yet, which is quite extraordinary when you consider just how awful, how sleazy, how low rent the two main opponents against Mamdani are, and specifically Cuomo, who appears to be the second choice for many New Yorkers in this race, or the first choice. I wouldn't even say second, the first choice among many New Yorkers and the second among some. It's quite extraordinary. It's not just that he's, a serial sexual harasser. It's not just that he's incredibly corrupt, although that obviously should rule him out. But his policies are bad. His policies are for the billionaire class. His policies are for genocide. And ultimately, that matters, I think, more than anything else. If you're a voter, nothing else should matter as much, nearly as much, as the policies that a candidate is likely to pursue when they're elected. One of the dynamics you see in the Cuomo-Mamdani race is that the billionaires, they don't care about Cuomo's record as a sexual predator. They couldn't care less. The fact that he's corrupt, that's actually a plus as far as they're concerned, because it means they can buy him. The only thing that the billionaires, the corporatists, the warmongers ultimately care about is policy. Will the policies of the candidate, if elected, benefit them? Will it make them even richer and even more powerful? And what we try to do here at Halitics, by the way, please give us a call, 240-242-5646. What we try to do here is make the case that what matters to you, to the voter, to the constituents, to the poor, the struggling, the working people, the middle class, what should matter to you when you vote is the policies. Just as the billionaires, they get it. They don't care. So what if you're sleazy? Who cares? We just want you to do what we want you to do. And that's what we need as voters, as working class, as pro-labor, as pro-consumer, as pro-life voters. What we need to focus like a laser beam on is policy. Will their policies take wealth and power from the billionaires, which is what we need them to do? Will their policies result in more healthcare availability, a complete end to healthcare debt, an end to student? Will their policies do that? We can't get diverted or distracted by nonsensical irrelevancies like, well, did they say they were black when they applied to college, and maybe, or African American, and yeah, they were born in Uganda, but does that really what we meant, or is that what Columbia meant? No, that doesn't matter. What matters is, will the candidate, if elected, pursue policies that make your life just a little bit better? And there's no question, there can be no doubt, it's beyond peradventure that Zohran Mamdani versus Adams versus Cuomo will make life better. Now, people say to me, well, you wouldn't vote for Harris, and she probably wouldn't have been quite as bad as Trump. That's true. She might not have been as bad as Trump, but she still would have been bad. Her policies still would have made life worse for you. Maybe just not quite as bad as Trump's have. Maybe, but maybe not. It depends on your situation. I don't think there can really be any doubt. If you look at what Mamdani's proposing, what he wants, more affordable housing, lots more, not just by freezing rents, but by building more, incentivizing the construction of affordable units, his plan to make public transit free. These are really good ideas that will lead to a better quality of life for poor, struggling, working, and middle-class people in the city of New York. They just will hurt the billionaires. So the billionaires get it. They understand. And they're all for Cuomo. Or maybe I'm mostly for Cuomo because they know they can control Cuomo. They know he'll do what they want. We've got to focus as voters on whether the policies of a particular candidate will help us or hurt us. That's got to be the number one and virtually the only thing, honestly, that we think about. And that's what we're trying to do here at Halitics. Unfortunately, I find so often people seem, in my opinion, to worry about things that really, in the end, shouldn't matter to them as voters. Because, you know, if a person's a piece of garbage in their personal life, but they're pro, you know, LBJ, from all we can understand, he wasn't nice to his wife. He treated her badly. He married her for her money. He wasn't attentive. It's not clear if he had affairs. He probably did. But you know what? Who cares if you're a voter? It's too bad for Lady Bird. I do feel bad about that, of course. But he signed the civil rights legislation. He was the guy who pushed for the Great Society, which made life so much better for people. So that's what matters if you're a voter. Now, you could say, well, but LBJ also supported the war in Vietnam, so we want to argue about that. Fine, we can debate it. I think there's pretty decent explanations, excuses for what happened under his tenure in Vietnam. I made that case before. But ultimately, when we judge presidents, we base their ratings on how they governed, not on whether they were good family men or women. The fact of George W. Bush, by all accounts, great father, right? I mean, his daughters seem to be doing really well. He and Laura seem to have a really good relationship. He's home painting. The guy's a torturer. Who cares? He put Dick Cheney as his number one with a bullet. So what if he was if he's good to his family? It doesn't matter in the scheme of things if you're a voter. So we as voters, we can't be distracted by nonsense. What isn't nonsense is the war on the Palestinian people that is being waged by Bibi Netanyahu with the full support of Donald J. Trump. That is not nonsense. That is horrific. That is evil. That is monstrous. And again, who's the candidate in New York who's speaking out against it? Obviously, it's Mamdani. So policy is what matters. His policies are good. Cuomo's are awful. Cuomo, first place I visit, oh, that'll be Israel. Yeah, now he says, well, there's some things Israel's doing we don't like. Yeah, because you want to get elected, not because you're actually going to do anything differently. Not because you're going to use your bully pulpit to push for more distance. I mean, I understand the mayor of New York's power is somewhat limited, obviously, when it comes to foreign policy, but they certainly do have some influence. And when it comes to, say, campus protests, who do you want protecting students who are speaking out against genocide? Who's going to defend the rights of Americans to speak out against government cruelty, against government sponsorship of war, ethnic cleansing, mass murder? Who's going to be on the line holding signs saying end genocide, end support for Israel? Obviously, it's Mamdani. I don't know how there can even be any doubt that he should be the mayor and that he's not up by 40, 50 points. He's not. We're going to get into the polling in a little bit. I got a little more to talk about. I showed you the death toll continues to rise, of course. in Israel, in Gaza, not in Israel, by Israel on Gaza. The death toll continues to mount. Anadolu Ajansi reporting 62,192 Gazans killed, murdered by Israel. I'm going to say they're all murdered. You say, well, some of them are held, they're Hamas. You know what? Hamas has a right at this point to fight against its occupier, its oppressor, its persecutor. That's as far as I'm going to go. I thought Aaron Monte made a great point on this on the clip. But, you heard Bernie even tell Dana Bash, well, it's really bad what Israel's doing. It's wrong. It's not, there's not two stories to it. It's not like Hamas is to blame for the starvation, although Dana Bash tried to make that case. So Bernie was pretty good. He said, yeah, no, Israel's to blame. Israel is committing, mass murder, war crimes. He wouldn't say genocide. But he also prefaced by saying Israel had a right to defend itself. Didn't do my Bernie very well there. Israel had a right to defend itself. He did say that. But as Aaron pointed out, yeah, during the attack on the music festival, and then I guess a few of the kibbutz in that area, sure, Israeli police, Israeli soldiers, if they're in that area, sure, they can get in the middle of it. They can protect the targets of Hamas while Hamas is in Israel. But once Hamas retreats, once Hamas is no longer on Israeli territory, no, you're the occupying force. You instigated the attack. Doesn't make it okay, doesn't justify it. Yes, you can protect people. But the proper response, I've said this over and over, and I'm not going to back down. The right response by Israel to the attack on October 7th was to, once they had protected their country from potential killing, the right response is to go to the United Nations, to go to the United States, and to say we're recognizing the Palestinian people as a state. And we're going to work with them, and we're going to work with whoever their representatives are to provide full self-determination for the Palestinian people. That would have been the right response. And they, and in response to that, we want the hostage release. That's what they should have done. There's no other acceptable reply. All right, 240-242-5646 if you want to join me. 240-242-5646. Nearly 62,200 Gazans killed now. Officially, that's the number. Obviously, there are many, maybe 3, 4, 5 times as many killed as that. Maybe even more, maybe 500,000. We just don't know. The entire area completely leveled. Trump and Netanyahu have killed and identified 10,646 Gazans, including over 5,000 women and children. So that's where we are. We have a terrible government. Our president is a fascist. There's no other way to look at it. There's no way to spin it to make it okay. We had a great guest yesterday, and I received this video in response to Chuck's appearance, and I want to just play it. It's not great. It's fuzzy. It's hazy, but I try to get some, to the extent possible, original material to you, or unpublished material to the extent it hasn't been, shared by a news outlet. So this is ICE agents in D.C. surrounding a man, and they're going to be asked, "What are you doing?" And they won't tell you. And I mean, this is not going to shock your conscience. It's not the worst, thing we've ever seen, but it's bad. It's police rule, police misrule. It's control not by the citizens, not the rule of law, but simply a bunch of basically official thugs, authorized thugs, to cause trouble, to make life worse, to make life harder for people rather than easier. So it's not, again, going to shock your conscience, but I want to just play it because I appreciated getting this. So you see the police there surrounding this person. They're just standing there. They're not, as far as we know, they're not saying anything.
Can you call the hotline? Yeah.
So he says, call the hotline.
Why are you arresting him?
So now a bystander says, why are you arresting him? And to me, this is just so easy and simple. You just say, this is the crime that we observe this person commit, or we suspect this person of a burglary, of an armed robbery, of something, or of some crime, right? Where they pose a danger. They're wanted. We have an arrest warrant for them. You just answer. Your job, just as politicians' duty, is to represent their constituents, right? To do what's best for the constituents in their opinion. And when the constituents' will is clear, to act on that will. It's not really that hard. So the police, we pay them. Their salary comes out of our tax dollars. They should be representing the people in their course of duties, in their scope of duties. They're asked a simple question. What are you doing? Why are you arresting him? Complete silence, radio silence.
Why are you arresting him? Why are you arresting him?
Why are you arresting him?
Are you what?
I just find that chilling. I really do. The just kind of complete impunity that the police act. Federal police, in that case, I believe they were ICE. It's terrifying. It is. That is fascism. It's not the rule of law. It's the rule of the man with a badge and a gun, period. End of story. End of conversation. And I understand, I don't know if it was that person, but other people who were swept up at this time, similar raid, just disappeared, gone. We don't know where they were taken. Terrifying. The only solution I see, again, I've talked about this, so, I protest, I go complain, I go down to Capitol Hill, try to shame people. But really, the only way this is going to ever end is if somehow we can get ourselves together to elect good people into office. And unfortunately, the electorate's really failed at that. Now, I get it, in 24, we didn't really have a lot of good choices, or any, in the presidential race. We did in 26, well, there was one. That's not true. There was a good choice. Jill Stein. We didn't support her. We didn't vote for her. 2016, there were a couple of good choices. There was Bernie in the primary, and there was Jill Stein in the presidential race. We didn't vote for them. We've got to do better, folks. We got a good chance in New York City in November to elect somebody who certainly appears to be good. Is he perfect? I have my concerns. I have my doubts. I understand the argument, well, the Democratic Party will never will never produce really good pro-people, pro-peace, pro-environment, pro-life politicians. It just can't do that. It's just not equipped to do that. But, you live in hope. And certainly Mamdani talks in a way that gives us reason to believe in him. I mean, I believed in Obama, so my track record ain't great. I understand. And if there was a green running against in that race, I'd consider them. But I think Mamdani, looks like the right choice. And certainly compared to the alternatives, he is. We've got to do better, folks. We can't be electing Harris's and Trump's and Hillary's and Biden's. We can't do this anymore. Especially Trump's, but the others as well. We can't keep doing this. So Trump is basically the overlord of the District of Columbia. This is fascism. Where's your Democratic Party? Where are they fighting against this? The Republicans are behind it. Anna Paulino Luna from Florida, she introduced a resolution to empower Trump to maintain federal control for as long as he wants. That's what her resolution would do. Now, I don't know if they voted or it hasn't been acted on. I assume it will pass. But there's a chance to defeat it if Democrats would unite against it. If they would unite against a power grab, they might scare a few Republicans into voting no. But where are they? They're not to be found. I was wondering about this too, because I haven't heard, you hear a lot of stories, and I know not Eric Adams, Hakeem Jeffries, right? I mean, might as well be Eric Adams. Hakeem Jeffries was, lamenting, I don't have time to endorse Zohran. I got to do this and I got to do that. But no real, like he sort of, I guess, he was talking about gerrymandering, right? That was his concern. The federal takeover of D.C., that warrants little or no response from the Democrats. And I've been wondering about this. I actually looked up because I haven't heard them talk about it. It doesn't seem like this is on their radar. By the way, please do click subscribe. Subscribe now, bottom right. And if you've already subscribed, a couple of other things you can do. We always ask, first of all, any kind of comment, any interaction with the video, please give me a call, 240-242-5646 will help. Any likes, any dislikes, whatever. But anything like that will really, really help us beat the algorithm. So that's really what I ask you to do. Click thumbs up. If you don't want to, you've already subscribed, you can certainly click like. So those are the ways we ask you to help Halitics. And what we're trying to do here, again, build a community. Build a true resistance. We're trying to really fight oligarchy, unlike the Democrats who are only fighting Republican oligarchs, not their own oligarchs. They're perfectly happy with them. There's the good billionaires. I think that's what the DNC chair referred to them, Ken, whatever his last name is. The good billionaires. No, it's not a question of their character. It's that we shouldn't have them. There shouldn't be anyone who can aggregate that much wealth, that much power, that much influence. And they control both parties, clearly. So I was wondering, because we talked about how bad that federal takeover of D.C. has been, not just, by the way, for the residents, not just for our freedom, but even for the businesses. The small businesses in D.C. are really suffering now. Restaurant, custom way down. So I was wondering, I haven't heard, and I'm not a huge news maven. I go to my usual sources. I watch lots of videos on YouTube. I do check out CNN. I read the New York Times front page a lot. But I'm not obsessive about trying to get every detail of the news that's out there. So I was thinking, well, maybe there has been some real pushback against the Trump takeover of D.C. because, Democrats characterize themselves as the resistance. This would seem to be a good area to resist. Wouldn't you think? Well, according to Current Affairs, that's Nathan J. Robinson, who, by the way, I'm not a huge fan of Nathan J. Robinson. I know he went on Brianna Joy Gray's show, Bad Faith, and argued why we had to vote for Kamala. And even when asked, is there anything a Democrat could do, any policy that a Democrat could embrace, she asked Nathan J. Robinson, that would cause you not to vote for them. And he said, well, that's not how it works. I just look at the two candidates, and whichever one's worse, I'm going to vote against them. And he was invoking, I think, Noam Chomsky for that same position, which is, well, if there's a two-person choice, you have to go for harm reduction at every opportunity. And it just doesn't seem to occur to these people that when you choose harm reduction, invariably, you still get lots of harm. And you remove your ability to demand real change, to say, no, we're not going to. You put forward a piece of crap candidate like a Kamala or a Hillary, or for that matter, Joe Biden, for whom I actually voted, and I guess I regret it. I mean, I don't have terrible regrets, but if you put forward a candidate like that, we're not going to vote for them. So in the future, bring us somebody better, or stay home. And to also say, you know what, I have some influence. I've got a magazine I edit. I write for it. We have some circulation. So I'm going to promote a candidate who would make things better if she's elected, and that's Jill Stein. It doesn't seem to occur to these people to do that. I guess they're just too embedded in the system. They're beneficiaries of it. They have some privileges that they might lose. Even a Nathan J. Robinson, he has some privileges he might lose. And he probably truly believes that our nation would benefit from a Kamala Harris presidency. I presume he does think that. At least there's some, at least he feels that we would be better off. But there's no long-term thinking. There's no recognition of just how much damage the neo-lib corporate warmonger Dems have done and continue to do, and how to stop that. There's no strategic thinking in that regard. And I think a big reason is because if you're inside that beast, if you're inside the belly of that beast, even if your privileges are relatively small, your income isn't very good, well, you have a decent job. Better to be the editor of current affairs than, I don't know, working 3 jobs, being a greeter at Walmart. I mean, right? Current affairs, Democrats aren't, so this is just what I said, fighting DC takeover because they've embraced law and order politics. Trump's actions in DC are authoritarian, but Dems' response has been feeble at best. That's because they don't fundamentally disagree with police crackdowns. Why not? Because they're the party of the billionaires, no less than the Republicans are the party of the billionaires. These aren't hard, not really even hard questions. They're not tough ones. They're just not tough to figure this out. Not tough to figure out. We got to figure a different way to go. And I still talk to people, and I love Chuck, and he's a great guest. We had him on yesterday. We had him on a lot, but he still kind of implicitly, and I think explicitly, accepts the idea that the Democrats are better. They're not that bad. That Trump is somehow this sui, and he's really bad. Yeah. Maybe he is a little bit sui generis, right? Maybe we won't see elections. It's really scary. I get it. But I don't know how to deal with that, because what the Democrats have done themselves is so harmful, so destructive. So wrong-headed, so misguided. All right, 240-242-5646 if you want to join me. I won't vote for evil. I'm done. I'm done with that. I am very concerned. I said worry, right? That was the title of today's program, worry. So I want to show you, and I kind of went back and forth, like how far out on the ledge I was when I saw this latest poll that I guess it didn't just come out from Gotham, or maybe it did. Apparently, the polling was conducted on August 11th. I'm not sure when it was published. So I'm not going to. Usually, I cut and paste, but here I just put together a little spreadsheet. So these 3 polls. There's a lot of other ones, but they're pretty representative of where we are, and I think they're probably the most reputable ones, the highest quality pollsters. So let's just start with what we're seeing over time from August 11th through June 30th, and with 3 different polls, 2 different pollsters. So you're not seeing a lot of movement in the race, and to the extent there is movement, I don't think it looks bad at all for Mamdani, right? I mean, my whole presumption here, and I think it's based on fact, is that the only acceptable candidate in this race is Zohran Mamdani. You cannot vote ethically for anyone but Mamdani in this race. That is my position. And I really want him to win. I think things are terrible in this country, in this world. The only likely answer, the only thing that could work, I'm not saying it will work, is if we unite and elect true progressives, true leftists. The only thing that could turn things around. I'm not saying it will, I'm saying it could. So I put a lot of eggs in that Mamdani basket. I don't think, confronting people and carrying signs and yelling at bad politicians does much good. If we do a lot of it, it doesn't seem to matter much. They're not going to change. They may pay lip service to progressive ideals or to just simply decency. But in the end, they're going to do what their backers want them to do, their billionaire backers want. That's how the Democratic Party has demonstrated over time it rolls. So I only see, with maybe, and hopefully Mamdani will be that exception, only through true democratic action where we elect good people and we vote out bad people like Andrew Cuomo or bad people like Eric Adams. Only by voting them out and replacing them with good people can we perhaps turn this ship around. We voted out Trump. He was a bad person. We replaced him with a bad person. Yes, Biden, was pulled in 24 because he was demanded. But we didn't get to choose somebody better. Replacement was just as bad. So that's not going to work. What we need to do is actually elect truly good people. I played that clip yesterday from Crystal Ball where she said, there's going to be a lane. There's a lane for an anti-genocide candidate, and she's sure someone's going to fill it in the Democratic primaries next in the next cycle for president. And who are you talking about? Who do you think could fill that lane? Because I'm not aware of anybody out there in the Democratic side. Catherine Clark? Come on. She pulled back, her relatively decent statement about genocide. Chris Van Hollen? I'd like to see Chris Van Hollen run. I think he's better than most of them, but I can't see him being a true outspoken opponent of the Zionist military-industrial complex. All right, so you look at these polls, and when I saw that the latest Gotham poll had Mamdani up by 42% to 23%, I was like, well, that's okay. I actually thought it's not great. He's lost a little bit. But I was wrong because it wasn't a poll-to-poll comparison. Yes, Siena has Mamdani up 44%, and now Gotham only at 42%, their support is at Mamdani 42% of the electorate, in the latest Gotham poll, 44%, so he dropped too, but so did Cuomo, right? So head to head, Mamdani in both polls is up by 19%. That's pretty good. And in the June 30 Gotham poll, Mamdani actually ticked up 1 point to 42, from 41 to 42%, and Cuomo dropped 4 points from 27 to 23%. So I'm like, okay, actually, this is a good trend. The trend is actually, to the extent there is a trend, not much. It's all probably within the margin of error, just 1 point here, 2 points there, not a big deal. But all in all, those numbers actually looked good. And if that was all there was, I would have talked myself off the cliff. I'd be like, yeah, it's going to be all right. But then I looked a little bit closer, and one of the biggest concerns, so this is the August poll. I'm going to compare these polls. We don't have all the data from all of them, but kind of weird. I wonder why it did it like that. It shouldn't have. But if you look closely at the August 7 or August 11 poll that came out from Gotham, and you compare it with earlier polls, there is some reason for concern. Now, one thing that the poll that Gotham did that I appreciate, I'm glad they did it, is they did just a pure head-to-head. Because it does seem very clear at this point. If the election were held between Mamdani, Cuomo, with Adams and Sliwa in it, and this guy Warren, I believe their name is, I'm not even sure. I don't think there's any doubt that Mamdani would win. He has the most support. more people choose him as their first choice than any of the others. We saw 19, 20%, big margin. This is the worry. This is why we should be concerned. And I'm going to get into more why it's so important also that Mamdani win in a little bit. But I know I'm making that assumption, but there's some more information out about that. But here's where I get worried. If you drop out everyone but Mamdani and Cuomo, Mamdani doesn't go up. He's 42% with Sliwa, Cuomo, Adams, and this guy Warren or Warner or whatever their name is. They're all in it. Mamdani's at 42%. You kick out Adams, Sliwa, and this guy Warner, whatever his name is. You kick them all out. Mamdani doesn't go up. He doesn't get any support from any of those guys. And Cuomo goes up from 23 to 30. So he gets 8%. And there's 27% undecided. That's 27%. If that breaks really aggressively, heavily, assuming this poll's accurate, yeah. I mean, if Mamdani were at 48, 49%, okay, well, he'll get 1%. It's not over, folks. Very, very frightening. Cuomo conceivably could still pull this out. It's very frightening, folks. And I want you to look at those favorables, unfavorables there. So in the August 11, Mamdani is a 43.3%, very unfavorable. That's a high percent. This is the other fear, right? Is that the people who are voting for Adams, Cuomo, Sliwa, they're buying all the propaganda. They're, whatever hate is being is being used to try to get people to hate, whatever they're using to get people to hate Mamdani, anti-Semitism, BS like that, communist, anti-business, whatever you want to call him, Marxist. That seems to work for a decent chunk of that conservative voting bloc in New York City. So 43%, almost half the voters have an very unfavorable view, according to Gotham, of Mamdani. Total unfavorability, a little under 50% for Mamdani. Now, for Cuomo, it's even higher. It's over 50%, 51%. And you see that in other polls. In the Siena poll, Mamdani's unfavorability was much lower, only 32%, and Cuomo's at 54%. Siena's a high-quality pollster, so very high quality, I believe. So, on balance, the polls look better for sure for Mamdani. But I'm really going through this because this is what's in my mind. Is he going to win? Will he win? And the other factor is you look at the June 30 Gotham poll, June 30, July 2 was the survey dates. Mamdani's unfavorability was at 50%, about where it is now, according to Gotham, but Cuomo's has actually dropped from 62% to 51%. So again, they're seeing some trends that aren't great. I think that 27% undecided is very worrisome. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going up to New York this weekend. I'm going to go to a progressive media event in New Jersey, and I'll tell you all about that when I get back. It's basically being hosted by The Gray Zone, by Max and Aaron Mate, Max Blumenthal. Blumenthal, right? Max Blumenthal. And Zohran Mate, Aaron Mate, not Zohran. So I'm looking forward to that. There's going to be a lot of other hosts there. Should be really interesting. And I'm hoping to get some tips, some pointers how to do a better show. And I think my show's really good, but obviously I don't have the audience that I want. So this will hopefully help me with that. And then on Sunday, I've already signed up. I will be canvassing for Mamdani. Now, I didn't know they were going to be doing all this canvassing already, but the election's actually less than three months out, right? Just a little over 2. It's August to September, September to October. That's 2 months, and we're late August. Election's early November. So just a little over 2 months out. I will be canvassing I'm putting my feet where my mouth is, and I'm going to go out there and hit knock on doors in Greenwich Village, West Village, for Zohran Mamdani, because that's how important I think this is. I don't think anything matters as much as elections. Nothing matters as much as elections. We've got to do everything we can to defeat the corporatists, the elites, the billionaire class, the forces of war, genocide, death. They're all against Zohran Mamdani. And a perfect example of that is the president, is Trump. Trump is all in for Cuomo. He's already said it. He's already said he wants Cuomo. And Cuomo says he wants that Trump wants him, and Cuomo welcomes the support of Trump. So if you're like a Trump hater, you're a Democrat who hates Trump, which pretty much all of you are, then I think you probably want to support the guy that Trump doesn't like. I think you probably would say, and this I think also is a real corrective, right? To those who say, well, the Democrats are just not as bad. The Democrats are better. You can hate Trump you can hate on them all you want. You can talk about all the bad things they've done, but Trump is a different cat. Trump is a different kind of cat, and we got to defeat him first and foremost. Well, he may be a different kind of cat, but he's a cat that Democrat Andrew Cuomo is hoping will help him win. And he's a cat that the New York Times, I think, wants his help, wants Trump's help, welcomes Trump to defeat Cuomo. So the idea that the Democrats are somehow superior, that we should look to them as saviors, runs smack into the fact that the Democratic establishment and Donald Trump are on the same page here. And they're on the same page when it comes to the DC takeover as well. And they're on the same page when it comes to funding the genocide in Israel as well. The genocide by Israel as well. I feel good about that, Andrew Cuomo said when asked about support from Donald Trump. Publicly, Cuomo has shunned the very idea of getting any help from Trump. He's no, of course not. I don't want his endorsement, is what he tells people when the tape recorders are running. He said he declined an endorsement and denied a report from the Times that he'd even spoken to Trump. But when asked at a behind closed doors fundraiser among the multimillionaires and billionaires in the Hamptons, yeah, feel good about Trump help. Now, if Andrew Cuomo was a decent, honorable person, he would say, yeah, if Trump really supports me for mayor, I shouldn't be mayor. Right? Wouldn't that be what we would want? I mean, it's not like Cuomo needs the money. Not like, go into public service. Truly be a public servant. But he wants to be mayor. He wants the opportunity to graft some more. He wants that ability to, have favors he can dangle in front of young women. The opportunity to grope, harass, take bribes from Wall Street. No, that's all at stake in this election. So of course Cuomo wants help from somebody who's basically just like him. There are not really any much differences, at least that I'm aware of, between Cuomo and Trump. In fact, Mamdani's made the case, I think correctly, legitimately, with evidence, with the receipts, that Cuomo is connected, at least somewhat tangentially, but legitimately connected to Jeffrey Epstein, just like Trump is. All right, here's Cuomo during the primary campaign.
The difference between myself and Andrew Cuomo.
Actually, here's Zohran first. We'll hear from Cuomo, but this is a little brief. So let's play it again, because I think Mamdani does a real nice job here, kind of laying it all out. What's at stake in this election?
The difference between myself and Andrew Cuomo is that my campaign is not funded by the very billionaires who put Donald Trump in D.C. I don't have to pick up the phone from Bill Ackman or Ken Langone. I have to pick up the phone for the more than 20,000 New Yorkers who contributed an average donation of about $80 to break fundraising records and put our campaign in second place.
Donald Trump would go through...
And let me stop it there for a sec. I'll go back and play a little more. But it's really important that we understand what Mamdani is saying there. He's saying, hey, the same people who support Trump support Cuomo. They have the same policies. They're going to do the same bad things, meaning Trump and Cuomo do the same bad things. They put Wall Street in charge. They take bribes from the highest bidder. They engage in anti-consumer, anti-labor policies because that increases the bottom line for the corporatists. So you're not getting any real difference between the two. This is, by the way, exactly why the corporatists embrace Cuomo, because his policies will benefit them. We have to say, okay, if these bad people who hurt us, who profit from our misery, want Cuomo, then obviously they view him as the one who will help increase our misery, right? If they don't like Mamdani, then he must be a good candidate. So that should inform our vote, not a bunch of worries about whether he's Muslim or if he this or if he's that, if he doesn't really trust, if he really isn't, really doesn't trust Jews. Come on. Will the policies reduce the wealth, influence, and power, the obscene inequality in our society? If the answer is they will reduce inequality, then you vote for the candidate. Unless there's a candidate who will reduce even more. In this case, Andrew Cuomo will make things worse. Zohran Mamdani, hopefully, probably, it appears likely, will make things better. At least we'll fight to. How is there any doubt he's the right choice?
In second place.
Donald Trump would go through Mr. Mamdani like a hot knife through butter.
You know, that is such a laugh, right? So Cuomo's saying, oh, yeah, Trump would just totally get over on Mamdani. That's why you got to vote for me. I'm the one who can stand up to Trump. It's such a joke. It's such a laugh, right? Because obviously Trump is afraid of Mamdani. Trump doesn't want Mamdani to win. Mamdani's even made the case. He said, hey, both of us campaign on affordability, but I'm serious about it. Trump wasn't. If I'm elected and I have success and I'm effective in improving the quality of life for poor, struggling, working class, middle class, upper middle class New Yorkers, that's going to really make Trump look bad. That's going to show a path forward where we elect progressives, we elect people who are prepared to take on the billionaire class. We can make life better. And that's what Trump's so afraid of. And Cuomo's like, oh, yeah, he'll go through me. He'll go through Mamdani like a hot knife through butter. If that were the case, Trump would be supporting Mamdani. He might not say anything. He wouldn't want people to know that's what he's thinking, maybe. But here, it's clear that Trump doesn't want Mamdani to win. He's afraid of Mamdani. And he's most certainly not afraid of Cuomo.
He's been in government 27 minutes. He passed 3 bills. That's all he's done. He has no experience with Washington, no experience in New York City.
Look, it's true that I don't have experience with corrupt Trump billionaires who are funding my campaign. I don't have experience with party politics and insider consultants. I do have experience, however, with winning $450 million in debt relief for thousands of working class taxi drivers and actually delivering it to the working class people like me.
All right, so, I mean, is there how can anyone even doubt that Zohran Mamdani should be president? He should, well, I think he should be president. That's a Freudian slip, but he should most certainly be mayor. And who knows, maybe he could be president. I think the policies that look, Americans were perfectly prepared to, and in fact did elect a Barack Hussein Obama president twice. They will elect a Zohran Mamdani. We will elect a Zohran Mamdani. We just have to have the opportunity to vote for them. And we have to be willing to cut through the crap. Now, Obama, I think, actually didn't get the entire book thrown at him in 2008 for a variety of reasons. I'm not sure what they all were. But I think there was some acknowledgement, recognition among the billionaire class that Obama wasn't really their sworn enemy, that he really wasn't going to govern as a pro-consumer, pro-labor president. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they were afraid of him. They just didn't have reason to be. But certainly Obama proved to be an ally of the elites, of the 1%. His policies improved their lot and hurt everybody else. I hope that's not the case with Mamdani. But the billionaire class is very, very concerned about him, which is a good reason to think he might be pro-person, pro-life president. Can only hope. Democratic Party is doing terribly. Mark Halperin, he used to do Morning Joe. I think he was drummed out of MSNBC for sexually harassing or groping, or I don't know what he did, inappropriate, anyway, behaviors. Has his own podcast. And every now and then I tune in. He did he covered this story along with several others that kind of exemplify the challenges the Democratic Party is facing. And his guest said this is the biggest one. I don't think there's any question. This is incredibly bad for Democrats. You're seeing that more and more people who are voting are registering as Republicans or as some other party than the Democratic Party. So since the beginning of last year, Republican registrations dropped a little. They were already had Democratic registrations. Democratic registrations have fallen more. More and more voters are identifying as Republicans, and fewer or as nothing. But the number who are identifying as Democratic voters is dropping very quickly, very seriously. Now, I would say, okay, I mean, I'm one of them. I actually was a Democrat, and now I'm a Green. So I'm part of that chart. I would say this is a good trend to the extent that it causes Democrats to decide they have to figure out a different way to appeal to voters. And that different way means we pursue better policies. We do what voters want. We present a vision for a better America. And then we fight for it. Obviously, that message hasn't gotten through, at least at this point. Here's what the New York Times says about its story here, how it did it, and what exactly all of it could mean. So, L2. The Times compiled registration data from L2. I don't know what L2 is, and compared it to state records across the country to show the scope of the registration decline for Democrats, and interviewed more than 24 party strategists and officials involved in registration efforts. Now, what I find really frustrating about that is why didn't they interview people who left the party? Why didn't they interview political scientists who aren't involved in registration efforts or aren't involved in either party, who are independent, who are perhaps able to provide some insights that aren't biased? But they don't do that. The Times, because they're not interested in unbiased criticism of the Democratic Party. What they're interested in is Democratic hasbara, Democratic propaganda, which they know is going to be the kind of propaganda it's not going to be Zohran Mamdani progressive populist propaganda. It's going to be consultant class propaganda. Well, the Democrats got a little too involved in identity politics. They're too pro-trans. They're, perceived as anti-white worker. Not the kind of criticism that I would lodge. They're in the pocket of the billionaires. They aren't fighting for working people. They're not fighting for peace. That's why people don't like them. It's pretty simple, really. So here's what Maria Cardona says. A veteran party strategist, I think she's on CNN a lot. A veteran party strategist and longtime member of the DNC. Oh, we fell asleep at the switch. No, your switch is going in the wrong direction. It's not that you fell asleep. Your switch is going in the wrong direction. You're actually, you actually derailed, you sent the train careening through poor, struggling, and working class neighborhoods and destroyed them. With your free trade policies, with your pro-war policies. That's the problem, Maria Cardona, is your party is bad for working people, poor people, struggling people, middle-class people. That's why people aren't registering as Democrats. By the way, they're not, you saw that Republican registration's declining too, but not as quickly, not as rapidly. And here's what Cardona says. You can't, it used to be, see what the article makes the point that in the past, these independent registration groups would go into black neighborhoods, they go into Latino neighborhoods, they go into young, in areas of cities where there are a lot of young people, not a lot of married couples, and register people. And the majority, they would make an assumption that was true in the 80s, the 90s, the aughts, the 2010s, that most people in those areas, those neighborhoods who met those demographic descriptions, young, of color, single, urban. If you fit into those categories, you were probably going to be a Democrat, relatively high percentage. So we'll register you, and yeah, maybe 10, 15, 25% even will be Republican, but most, the great majority, will be Democrat. Not the case anymore, especially among voters of color. They're not necessarily voting Democratic. The Democrat Party doesn't offer them what it is they want, what they need. It's not speaking to them anymore. And its policies are not helping them in an increasingly dangerous and unaffordable world. So, what a shock. They're not registering as Democrats. Now, what Cardona's answer is, what the Democratic consultancy class's answer to all this is, well, we have to come up with better messaging. We have to have a better sales pitch. But the idea of maybe not selling turd sandwiches doesn't occur to them. The idea that, well, maybe people just don't want Kamala Harris and her policies, that doesn't occur to them. Or if it does, they repress that thought because the policies that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Andrew Cuomo and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Steny Hoyer, the policies that they pursue are exactly what the consultant class, the ones the New York Times interviewed for this article, that's the policies they want. So of course they're not going to say, well, the policies that that our party is pushing are bad. They're not going to say that because they love those policies. Instead, they're going to come up with every other explanation in the book. You know how you get through all that crap? You vote for Zohran Mamdani. And you vote against every Democrat whose policies aren't in your best interest, who don't pursue progressive, pro-labor, pro-environment, pro-peace policies. Yeah, sorry, there's a little bit of a tech there. So that's going to do it for today's program. I want to thank you for being part of Halitics. And, hey, don't worry too much, but worry a little bit. It would be a terrible, terrible thing if Zohran Mamdani doesn't win in November. I'll be back tomorrow for the free-for-all.